Hello dear students, as we already discussed in the last lecture, today we are going to start the first chapter of botany, and I have also told you that the first chapter that we are going to start is the cell, which is the basic structural and functional unit of life. And why we are going to start this chapter first? Because in syllabus this is the 8th chapter, but we are studying it as a first chapter. The reason behind that is this chapter is the base of the whole biology, because every living organism is made up of cell. So जैसे केमिस्ट्री पढ़ने के लिए आपको पहले एटम्स के बारे में पढ़ना जरूरी होता है, and then you further study about the molecules and then compounds, etc. Likewise, in biology also we first need to study the basic fundamental structural and functional part of the body of every organism, and that basic part or the unit of the body is the cell. And that is why in this chapter we will see how the cell was first discovered, then we will see the characteristic features of different types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, and we will also see the internal structures of these cells, what is exactly present in these cells internally, and how these different parts of the cell they function, they integrate their functions with each other, and they are responsible for carrying out the functions at the organism level. Okay, so we will start our discussion with the difference between the animate and the inanimates, that is between the living organisms and the non-living things. What is the main basic structural difference between the living organisms and the non-living things? It is the presence of the cell. Every living organism has cell and no non-living thing has cell. So that is the difference, and that is why the organisms are living and the things are non-living, because the cells make the organisms living and functional. Okay, now the organisms which are cellular, they may be made up of a single cell or they may be made up of multiple cells. So there are a hell lot of examples of organisms which are made up of only one cell, and such type of organisms are called as unicellular organisms. And the examples of unicellular organisms are bacteria, which are grouped into prokaryotes. Then there are protists. Protists are unicellular eukaryotes, and there are some fungi like yeast which are also unicellular. So ये एक सिंगल सेल से बने हुए ऑर्गेनिज्म है, मतलब इनका बॉडी एक ही सेल का बना हुआ है, बट स्टिल दे आर लाइव, they are capable of functioning all the physiological activities in the cell, and they function as a single organism, as a single cell. Now, in case of multicellular organisms, there are again lots of examples. For example, the higher plants like pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, the animals like humans, other mammals, they are all made up of multiple cells. We humans, we are made up of trillions of cells, and because we are made up of billions or trillions of cells, such type of organisms like us are referred as multicellular organisms. And in multicellular organisms, the cells group together and they form tissues, and these groups of cells perform the special types of functions in the tissues. Then the tissues group together and they form organs, and further the organs function at their individual level, but they coordinate their functions with other organs, and that is why a complete body functions as a system of organs. Now the next point that we have to discuss is what basically is a cell. So cell is, as we already discussed several times, is the fundamental structural and functional part or unit of life. Now what do we mean by structural unit of life? As recently I told you, every tissue is made up of cells, and tissues compose organs, organs compose organ systems, and organ systems compose the organism. So इस पूरे फ्लो में जैसे जैसे साइज बढ़ता है टिश्यूज, ऑर्गन्स, ऑर्गन सिस्टम्स एंड देन ऑर्गेनिज्म का, the basic unit which is responsible for forming all these structures is basically the cell, and that is why we say that cell is the structural unit of life. Now why do we say that cell is a functional unit of life? क्योंकि किसी भी ऑर्गेनिज्म का जो ओवरऑल फंक्शन है, it is dependent on the individual cells functions. For example, digestion we will take. Now digestion is the process of degradation of the food material, and then the degraded food material, the ingredients of the food material are absorbed into the blood of the higher organisms like us, and then it is transported towards different cells of the body. So how this digestion basically occurs? In digestion there are different types of cells involved. Okay, for example, we use the hand as an organ which is made up of different types of cells to take the food inside the mouth. Then within the mouth the teeth are made up of cells. Then the tongue, which is responsible for tasting the food material, it is also made up of cells. Then the salivary glands are made up of cells which release the saliva, and the release of saliva helps in partial digestion of the food material. Then we ingest the food, and the ingestion is also possible with the help of structures that are also made up of cells. Okay, then when the food material enters into the stomach, then the different epithelial cells, they release HCl for the proper digestion of the cell. Then the food material then further gets transferred into the intestine. There also different organs which are made up of cells, they release different types of enzymes. So different types of cells basically release enzymes for the proper digestion of the food material. Okay, so this whole process of food digestion and absorption is assisted by several cells, hundreds of different types of cells. Okay, so इन सब cells के functions के वजह से एक process जो है digestion and absorption का, वो complete हो जाता है. So for performing a single individual function, we need to take the help of functions of several cells in the body. So that is why we say that cells are the functional units of life also. You can take any example. For example, functioning of the nervous system is also dependent on the nerve cells. Functioning of the circulation is also dependent on different organs which like heart, then lung, then veins and arteries, etc. And every one of them is, or everything of them is made up of cells. So individual cells के functions integrate होने के वजह से टिश्यू लेवल पे, ऑर्गन लेवल पे एंड ऑर्गेनिज्म लेवल पे फंक्शंस होते हैं, एंड दैट इज व्हाई वी से दैट द सेल इज आल्सो द फंक्शनल यूनिट ऑफ लाइफ. नाउ वी विल डिस्कस हाउ these cells were first discovered. Robert Brown was the first scientist to observe the cells. He observed the cells in the cork of plants. Now what is the cork? Plants के स्टेम के अंदर जो बाहरी पोर्शन होता है आउट ऑफ द जाइलम एंड फ्लोएम, उस पोर्शन को हम बार्क बोलते हैं जनरली. तो बार्क में एक हिस्सा होता है कॉर्क का. बार्क इज मेड अप ऑफ कॉर्क, इट इज मेड अप ऑफ सम पार्ट ऑफ द फ्लोएम एंड सम एपिडर्मल आउटसाइड सेल्स. तो उनमें से जो कुछ सेल्स हैं बार्क में से, दे आर कॉल्ड एज कॉर्क सेल्स, एंड दिस कॉर्क सेल्स वेर फर्स्ट ऑब्जर्व्ड बाय रॉबर्ट हुक अंडर द माइक्रोस्कोप. But what he observed under the microscope were dead cork cells. He didn't observe the live cells, क्योंकि उसने जो cells देखे थे जनरली वो पोलीगोनल टाइप के cells थे, इस तरह के. तो इन cells के अंदर कोई प्रोटोप्लाज्म नहीं था. Everything inside these cell walls was dead. मतलब न्यूक्लियस, साइटोप्लाज्म कुछ भी नहीं था, सब मर के डीजनरेट हो गया था. So what he observed was the boundaries of the cells, and these boundaries are made up of cell walls. So he only observed the cell walls of the dead cells. Now the next scientist, Anton von Leeuwenhoek, he first observed the live cells. Okay, and then Robert Brown observed nucleus जिसके अंदर DNA प्रेजेंट होता है in the form of chromosomes. ऐसा न्यूक्लियस यूकैरियोटिक सेल्स के अंदर पहले रॉबर्ट ब्राउन ने ऑब्जर्व किया अंडर द माइक्रोस्कोप ऑब्वियसली, एंड ही ऑब्जर्व दैट न्यूक्लियस फर्स्ट टाइम इन द ऑर्किड सेल्स. ऑर्किड इज ए फ्लावरिंग प्लांट, तो इस प्लांट के कुछ सेल्स के अंदर उसने न्यूक्लियस पहले देखा एंड ही रिपोर्टेड दैट द यूकैरियोटिक सेल्स possess a nucleus type of organelle inside the cell. This is about the general discussion about the cells and the discovery of the cells. In the next section, we will discuss about the cell theory. Okay students, so now we will discuss about cell theory. Cell theory are some general statements about the properties and the rules of the cells inside the living organisms. So we will discuss about the first scientist who gave some generalizations about the cells. The first scientist is Matthias Claden, who is a German botanist. Actually he was a German botanist, he is not existing today. So what he did, he observed several plant tissues, and after observing several plant tissues he concluded that every plant tissue is made up of cells, different types of cells. After him, Theodor Schwann, or at the same time about the discovery of Claden, the Theodor Schwann, who is a British zoologist, he also observed some animal cells under the microscope, and after observing the animal cells under the microscope, he said that every animal cell is surrounded by a thin layer or a thin outer covering, and that thin outer covering is called as the plasma membrane, which is also referred as a cell membrane. And though he was a zoologist, Schwann also observed some plant cells under the microscope, and after observing the plant cells finely under the microscope, he came to know that plant cells possess a special type of covering outside them which is not present in animals, and that special type of covering is cell wall, which is made up of different types of carbohydrates, especially cellulose in most of the plants. And he said that presence of cell walls is a characteristic feature of plant cells only, because the cell wall is absent in animals. And then he concluded that, after taking all these observations, he concluded that the cells of every organism are made up, or every organism is made up of cells and the products of the cells. Now cells से बना हुआ है हर organism, that we can understand, but what about the products of the cells? For example, saliva is a product of the cell which helps in the process of digestion, or there are some different proteins which are secreted by the cells which also help in the process of digestion, etc. So cell के बाहर जो products release होते हैं, they also help in the functioning of the body and the functioning of the cells. That is why we say that the organisms are made up of cells and the products of the cells also. Okay. Now they came together, Claden and Schwann, and they proposed the cell theory, and their cell theory included only two statements. The first statement was that every organism is made up of cells, and another statement was that the cells are the structural and functional unit of life. But their cell theory could not propose that how new cells arise. जैसे हमको क्वेश्चन होता है कि पहले कौन एग्जिस्ट हो गया, पहले मुर्गी या पहले अंडा, तो जो भी पहले था उससे दूसरा कैसे आ गया. तो इस तरीके के जो क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, उसी तरीके में ये भी एक क्वेश्चन है कि जो सेल्स है वो कैसे एग्जिस्ट होते हैं, पहले कौन सा सेल होता है, फिर बाद में कौन सा सेल आता है. सो द सेल थियरी प्रपोज्ड बाय द क्लेडन एंड स्क्वान could not focus on the existence of the cells, how the cells arise. But another scientist, Rudolf Virchow, he said that new cells arise from the parental cells or the pre-existing cells by the process of सेल डिवीजन। और आप लोगों को पता भी है कि सेल्स डिवाइड आइदर बाय माइटोसिस एंड मियोसिस, एंड अगर सेल्स डिवाइड होते हैं माइटोसिस से तो एक सेल से दो सेल्स बनते हैं जैसे कि यहाँ पे दिखाया गया है, एंड अगर सेल्स डिवाइड होते हैं मियोसिस से तो एक सेल से चार सेल्स बनते हैं। सो माइटोसिस से इन जनरल जो दो सेल्स बन रहे हैं दे अराइज फ्रॉम द प्री एग्जिस्टिंग सेल बाय द प्रोसेस ऑफ माइटोसिस और सेल डिवीजन। इसी तरीके से इन दोनों सेल का भी डिवीजन हो गया तो उनसे और दो दो सेल्स बनेंगे। सो जो न्यू सेल्स अराइज हो रहे हैं दे अराइज ड्यू टू द प्रोसेस ऑफ सेल डिवीजन फ्रॉम द प्री एग्जिस्टिंग सेल्स। अपने लैंग्वेज में रुडोल्फ विर्चोव ने कहा था omnis cellula e cellula, that means in English every cell arises from the pre-existing cell by the process of cell division, and this statement was later included in the cell theory which says that every new cell arises from pre-existing cell by cell division, and the credit goes to Rudolf Virchow. Okay, this is all about cell theory. We will stop here. We will discuss the next point in the next lecture. Thank you.